Emily Carter stepped off the military transport with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. The sun was rising over the naval base, casting long shadows across the perfectly aligned buildings and hangars. She took a deep breath, feeling the salty sea air fill her lungs. This was her first day at the base, her first real assignment as a young officer in a place dominated by men who had spent years, sometimes decades, building their reputations. She knew the environment would be tough, but Emily had always believed that hard work and determination could overcome any challenge. As she walked across the asphalt, she noticed the organized chaos of the base in action. Sailors moved in disciplined patterns, carrying equipment, checking schedules, and running drills. The sound of boots hitting the concrete, mixed with the distant roar of helicopters and the occasional barked orders, created a rhythm that made Emily's heart race with both excitement and respect. She could feel the weight of the history around her, the countless officers and soldiers who had trained, fought, and proven themselves here before her. She wanted to belong, to make her mark, but she knew she had to be careful, too. Soon, she reached the main training area, where a group of Navy SEALs was finishing up an early morning drill. They were lean, muscular, and moved with the kind of confidence that comes only from years of experience. Emily felt a flicker of intimidation, but she reminded herself that she had earned her place here. She had trained rigorously, studied strategy, and developed skills that many of these men had only learned after years of fieldwork. Still, she knew that being new meant she would be judged more harshly. She had to prove herself. Then came the moment that Emily had anticipated but couldn't predict the exact way it would happen. One of the SEALs, a tall man with a sharp gaze and a confident smirk, stepped toward her. His presence seemed to fill the space, and Emily instinctively straightened her posture. He looked at her for a moment, his eyes scanning her uniform, her insignia, and finally her face. "What's your rank?" he asked, his tone playful, almost mocking. It was clear that he expected a nervous or uncertain reply, something he could laugh at later in the mess hall. Emily smiled slightly, keeping her tone calm and steady. "Lieutenant, sir," she replied. There was no hesitation, no tremor in her voice. She met his eyes with quiet confidence, showing that she was aware of the challenge he had just thrown at her. But she was not intimidated. For a moment, the SEAL seemed surprised. He had expected someone inexperienced to fumble, to make a joke of themselves under pressure. Instead, Emily stood tall, unshaken, and fully aware of the weight her words carried. A small chuckle escaped him, not mocking this time, but a little lighter than before. It was the sound of someone who had been caught off guard. He nodded slightly, still smirking, but there was a trace of respect hidden behind it. Emily felt a small surge of satisfaction, though she didn't let it show. She knew this was just the first test, the first interaction in what would be a long series of judgments she would have to overcome. She couldn't rely on one moment to define her. The rest of the morning was a blur of introductions and small tasks. Emily met other officers, some who were welcoming, some indifferent, and a few who seemed almost dismissive. It didn't bother her. She was learning quickly that the base had its own hierarchy and culture, one that could be intimidating to newcomers, especially someone trying to break into a traditionally male-dominated environment. Every glance, every gesture, every offhand comment was something she carefully observed, storing the details in her mind for later use. By midday, Emily found herself walking along the docks, watching the waves crash against the pier. It was a moment of calm, a brief pause in an otherwise overwhelming first day. She allowed herself to reflect on her journey so far, the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices she had made to reach this point. None of it was easy, but she had always believed that persistence and focus could overcome doubt and prejudice. She reminded herself that the real challenge was not just physical skill or military knowledge. It was earning respect in a world where she was expected to be underestimated. As the sun climbed higher, Emily returned to the training grounds for the afternoon session. She watched closely, learning the routines and protocols of the base. Every movement, every instruction, every minor correction the SEALs received was a lesson for her. She noted their discipline, their quick decision-making, and their camaraderie. Emily knew that understanding these dynamics would be key to navigating her new environment successfully. She wasn't just learning about tasks and drills. She was learning how to earn trust and respect from people who had been trained to doubt her capabilities. By the end of the day, Emily felt exhausted but invigorated. She had faced her first interaction with someone who doubted her, handled it with confidence, and survived her first full day in an intimidating new environment. As she prepared to leave the training grounds, she knew that her journey was just beginning. The challenge of proving herself had only started, and she was ready for whatever came next. For Emily Carter, the first day was not just about surviving. It was about planting the seeds of respect and showing that she belonged at the naval base, no matter the doubts of those around her. The days after Emily Carter's first day at the base felt both overwhelming and eye-opening. She quickly realized that being new wasn't just about learning routines and procedures. It was about navigating a world full of unspoken rules, judgments, and subtle tests. Some of the personnel had barely acknowledged her presence, while others had outright doubted her abilities. Emily could feel the skepticism in their glances, the quiet whispers when she passed by, and the way some tasks were assigned with an unspoken assumption that she might fail. But instead of letting it frustrate her, she used it as motivation. She started observing everything with careful attention. From the moment she arrived in the morning, she watched how the seasoned officers moved, how they interacted with each other, and how they approached their work. Emily noticed small details: the way a SEAL adjusted his gear before a drill, the subtle signals they used to communicate silently during exercises, and the precise timing required for certain maneuvers. She took notes mentally, making a plan to integrate these observations into her own routines. Her goal was not just to blend in, but to excel and earn respect through actions rather than words. During the mornings, she attended briefings and training sessions alongside the more experienced personnel. At first, some of them assumed she was out of place. They would glance at her, sometimes raising an eyebrow, silently questioning if she could keep up. Emily noticed that some officers treated her with impatience, giving her instructions in a curt, almost dismissive tone. They would sometimes explain things slowly or repeat directions unnecessarily, as if assuming she wouldn't understand otherwise. She kept her composure, listening carefully and performing each task to the best of her ability. She never reacted with frustration or defensiveness. Instead, she quietly proved through action that she was paying attention and learning quickly. Emily's approach to these early days was strategic. She realized that proving competence was not always about making dramatic gestures or showing off skills immediately. It was about consistency. She focused on completing small tasks flawlessly, helping where she could, and asking intelligent questions that showed she understood the bigger picture. Slowly, a few officers began to take notice. They saw that she was not someone who could be easily dismissed. Her calm and composed demeanor under scrutiny made her stand out in subtle but powerful ways. Even outside formal training, Emily took the time to understand the culture of the base. She paid attention to the relationships among the personnel, how respect was earned, and how authority was exercised. She noticed that jokes, teasing, and casual mockery were often used to test newcomers' confidence. The Navy SEALs, in particular, had a culture of toughness that included playful yet pointed tests to see how new members would react. Emily remembered the first interaction with Chief Ramirez, who had asked her rank as a joke. She realized that such moments were opportunities to demonstrate composure and earn respect without confrontation. As the week progressed, Emily began taking on slightly more challenging tasks. She volunteered for exercises that others sometimes avoided, showing that she wasn't afraid of physical challenges or high-pressure situations. When assigned to assist in coordinating drills, she noticed that some officers would leave her to handle minor issues alone, perhaps expecting mistakes. Emily, however, handled every situation carefully, using her observations and training to make smart decisions. Her attention to detail and strategic thinking became more evident with each passing day. Despite her quiet success, Emily also faced moments of frustration. There were times when a task was unnecessarily complicated for her, or when she overheard dismissive comments about her capabilities. But instead of reacting with anger, she used those moments as learning experiences. She reflected on how she could improve, what she could do differently, and how she could handle similar situations in the future. Every challenge, every skeptical glance, became a stepping stone in her path toward earning respect. Emily's ability to stay calm and composed began to affect how others saw her. A few of the more experienced officers began offering guidance, not out of pity, but out of genuine interest in her potential. They noticed that she listened carefully, applied advice thoughtfully, and never hesitated to learn. This was a turning point. Slowly, the tone of the base started to shift, at least in subtle ways. While some still doubted her, others were beginning to acknowledge that she was someone worth watching, someone who might exceed expectations rather than merely meet them. By the end of the second week, Emily felt a quiet confidence growing inside her. She knew she was still new and that earning full respect would take time, but she also recognized her own progress. The base, with its challenges, skepticism, and high standards, was beginning to feel like a place where she could belong. She realized that success here wouldn't be about proving herself to everyone at once. It would be about steady, consistent effort, making intelligent choices, and showing through action that she deserved her place. As Emily prepared for another day of training and observation, she reminded herself of the lessons she had learned so far. Confidence without arrogance, diligence without complaint, and strategic thinking under pressure. These were the qualities that would set her apart. She understood that her journey had just begun, but the foundation was already being laid. She was ready to face the doubts, the teasing, and the challenges that awaited, knowing that each day offered another chance to demonstrate that she was not just a newcomer, but a force to be reckoned with. The challenge came sooner than Emily Carter expected. One morning, during a regular training session, Chief Ramirez called her aside with a mischievous smirk that immediately made her alert. She knew him well enough by now to understand that he rarely smiled without a reason. "Let's see what you've got," he said, tossing her a task that seemed simple at first, but everyone else knew was extremely difficult for a newcomer. The assignment involved navigating a complicated obstacle course under strict time limits while carrying additional equipment. A test designed to push even the most experienced officers. Emily could sense that he was testing her, perhaps expecting her to stumble or hesitate. She didn't let her nerves show. Instead, she took a deep breath, assessed the challenge, and began planning her approach mentally. Emily had learned in the past 2 weeks that preparation and observation were just as important as physical ability. She remembered how the SEALs moved, how they anticipated obstacles, and how they adapted when something unexpected happened. She knew this was her chance not only to prove herself but also to show that she could think strategically under pressure. As she stepped onto the course, her focus sharpened. Each obstacle was a puzzle to solve, not just a physical task. She moved with precision, timing her steps carefully and adjusting her pace to conserve energy for the toughest sections. She remembered the advice from senior officers about maintaining calm under stress. Rushing could lead to mistakes, but staying composed allowed for smart decision-making. Emily relied on every detail she had observed over the past days, from how to grip ropes to the angles for climbing walls efficiently. Chief Ramirez followed her closely, keeping a critical eye on her performance. He whispered to another officer nearby, expecting perhaps to witness a minor failure that could become the talk of the base. But Emily didn't falter. When she encountered a particularly tricky obstacle, she paused for just a second, analyzing the situation, then executed a perfectly calculated move that allowed her to clear it smoothly. Every step she took demonstrated not only strength and agility but also intelligence and foresight. By the time she reached the final stage of the course, whispers spread among the onlookers. Other officers were impressed, even a little surprised, by her composure and efficiency. Emily had not only kept up with the pace but had anticipated challenges in a way that showed understanding beyond her experience level. Chief Ramirez, who had started the exercise with a playful smirk, now watched with a mix of admiration and disbelief. She had transformed what he intended as a simple test, or even a joke, into a display of her competence and determination. The most critical part of the course was a coordination exercise that required teamwork. Emily had been paired with another officer who was skeptical about her abilities. Many expected tension or mistakes, But Emily immediately took the lead, calmly communicating with her partner and ensuring their actions were synchronized. She provided guidance without being bossy, listened carefully to suggestions, and adapted quickly when something didn't go as planned. By the end, not only had they completed the task, but they had done it in record time, leaving no room for criticism. Chief Ramirez finally approached her at the end of the exercise. For the first time, there was no teasing in his tone. Instead, he nodded in approval, acknowledging her skill and strategic thinking. "Not bad," he said simply. It was a small phrase, but coming from him, it carried enormous weight. Emily smiled quietly, knowing that respect was earned slowly and that this was a meaningful step forward. She had faced a direct test from one of the most seasoned officers on the base and had emerged not just unscathed, but clearly competent. This exercise changed more than just Emily's standing with Chief Ramirez. Other personnel who had been observing began to see her differently. They realized that she was not just another inexperienced officer who would fumble under pressure. Her calmness, intelligence, and ability to perform under scrutiny had earned their attention. Some whispered to each other, acknowledging quietly that she had exceeded expectations. Even those who had been dismissive or doubtful couldn't ignore her success. It was the kind of performance that left a lasting impression, one that could not be easily forgotten or dismissed. Emily, however, didn't allow herself to become arrogant or complacent. She understood that one successful challenge did not define her entire journey. She reflected on the exercise as she cooled down, thinking about what she had done well and where she could improve. She analyzed her timing, her coordination, and her decision-making, making mental notes to refine her approach for future challenges. For Emily, learning and growth were continuous processes. Success was satisfying, but improvement was the ultimate goal. By the end of the day, Emily felt a sense of quiet pride. She had faced a deliberate test meant to intimidate her and had not only passed but excelled. Her reputation was beginning to shift from the new officer to someone who can handle serious challenges. She had proven that preparation, observation, and calm execution could turn skepticism into admiration. And while Chief Ramirez's smirk had initially symbolized doubt, it now carried respect, marking a significant turning point in her relationship with him and her place in the base hierarchy. This moment, Emily realized, was just the beginning. The base was a world of constant tests, both subtle and overt, and she had successfully navigated one of the earliest and most important. Her confidence grew not because she had outperformed others for recognition, but because she had proven to herself that she could remain calm, think clearly, and succeed in high-pressure situations. This lesson would carry her through many more challenges to come, shaping her into the officer she was determined to become. After Emily Carter's impressive performance during the training exercise, a subtle but noticeable change began to take place at the base. The whispers and skeptical glances that had followed her for the past few days slowly started to shift. Personnel who had doubted her abilities were beginning to see her in a new light. It wasn't a dramatic transformation overnight, but small gestures, expressions, and behaviors started to signal that respect was gradually being earned. Emily noticed these changes, but she remained grounded, knowing that true respect had to be consistently maintained through action, not just earned in one moment. Chief Ramirez, in particular, seemed different. The playful smirk that had once accompanied every interaction now appeared less often, replaced by a thoughtful look whenever Emily completed a task. He started offering guidance instead of subtle challenges, something that Emily recognized as a sign of growing respect. His approach was no longer about testing her boundaries for amusement. It was about helping her integrate more fully into the team. Emily appreciated this, but she never allowed herself to take it for granted. She understood that trust and respect were fragile at the base, and one mistake could undo weeks of careful effort. Emily's colleagues began to approach her in different ways. A few of the senior officers, who had previously ignored her, started giving her small opportunities to demonstrate her abilities in more complex tasks. These weren't public tests or challenges. They were subtle ways of assessing her skills while also trusting her judgment. Emily embraced these opportunities with quiet confidence. She completed each task meticulously, showing attention to detail and a deep understanding of the base's operations. Her ability to execute assignments efficiently and intelligently made others start to see her as more than just the new officer. They began to see her as someone reliable, competent, and strategic. The change in perception wasn't limited to just senior personnel. Among her peers, Emily noticed a shift as well. Initially, some of them had been dismissive, joking about her in ways that felt small but pointed. Now, she found that those same peers began to ask for her opinion, consult her on small decisions, or even subtly mimic the careful attention to detail she displayed. Emily realized that respect wasn't just being granted, it was being recognized through behavior. She had influenced the culture in small ways, and her consistent performance had quietly challenged assumptions about what a newcomer and a female officer could accomplish on the base. One afternoon, Emily was assigned to assist in coordinating a joint training exercise. This was a task that required careful planning, clear communication, and the ability to anticipate problems before they occurred. Previously, such a responsibility might have been considered too advanced for someone in her position. But now, under the watchful eye of senior officers, she was trusted to handle it with minimal oversight. Emily approached the assignment methodically. She drafted a detailed plan, double-checked equipment and personnel assignments, and anticipated potential issues that could arise during the exercise. When the exercise began, everything went smoothly. Emily's preparation ensured that her team moved efficiently, that all objectives were met, and that minor obstacles were handled without disruption. Chief Ramirez observed her quietly throughout the exercise. He had been skeptical in the past, but now he was genuinely impressed by her ability to lead and organize effectively. Afterward, he approached Emily and offered constructive feedback rather than playful teasing. He highlighted the things she had done well and suggested a few areas for refinement, treating her as an equal rather than a newcomer to be tested. Emily listened attentively, taking his advice seriously while recognizing that this acknowledgement was another sign of her growing credibility on the base. Emily also noticed that her confidence was starting to influence her interactions. Before, she had been careful to stay in the background when unsure of herself. Now, she spoke up more often in briefings, offering insights and suggestions. She was careful not to overstep or appear arrogant, but her ideas were increasingly respected. When she spoke, others listened, not because she demanded attention, but because she had earned it through her consistent, competent actions. Each success, no matter how small, was a brick in the foundation of her growing reputation. Despite these positive changes, Emily remained aware that challenges were still ahead. Earning respect at the base was not a one-time accomplishment. It was a continuous process. She continued to observe carefully, learning the dynamics between personnel, understanding the subtleties of authority, and noting the unspoken rules that governed interactions. Her strategy was simple: act with competence, communicate clearly, and always maintain composure under pressure. By doing so, she was slowly but surely earning the trust and respect of those around her. By the end of the week, Emily reflected on the progress she had made. The subtle changes in behavior, the shift in tone from skepticism to cautious respect, and the increasing willingness of her colleagues to involve her in important tasks all indicated that she was no longer just a newcomer. She had begun to establish herself as a capable officer who could handle challenges with intelligence, composure, and strategy. Emily felt a quiet sense of pride, not because she had won approval through theatrics or loud displays, but because she had earned it honestly, through diligence, observation, and consistent effort. As she prepared for the next day of training, Emily knew that her journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, tougher assignments, and more tests of her abilities. But the foundation had been laid. She had proven that even in a place filled with skepticism and high expectations, it was possible to earn respect not through words or status, but through quiet, consistent action. The lessons she had learned in this phase of her journey would guide her through the challenges ahead, building not only her reputation but her confidence and resilience as an officer on the naval base. A few weeks after Emily Carter had begun to earn the respect of her colleagues, an important announcement was made at the base. A critical mission simulation was scheduled, one that tested teamwork, strategy, endurance, and leadership under extreme pressure. It was a scenario that all personnel took very seriously, and only those considered capable were given key roles. Emily, now more confident in her abilities, volunteered to take a leadership position during the exercise. Many people in the base raised their eyebrows at this decision. She was still relatively new, and volunteering for a leadership role in such a high-stakes simulation was unusual. Yet Emily's determination and quiet confidence gave her the courage to step forward. The morning of the simulation, the base was alive with energy. Officers and trainees moved with purpose, checking equipment, reviewing plans, and discussing strategy. Emily gathered her team and began outlining the plan for the mission. She had carefully studied the simulation scenario in advance, memorizing the terrain, potential obstacles, and the sequence of events. Unlike some who might rely on instinct alone, Emily combined her preparation with adaptability, ready to adjust to unexpected challenges. Her calm, clear instructions gave her team confidence, and they listened intently, trusting her judgment despite her newcomer status. As the mission simulation began, Emily led her team through the first stage with precision. The tasks were physically demanding, requiring endurance, strength, and speed. But what set Emily apart was her ability to think several steps ahead. She anticipated potential problems, redirected her team before mistakes occurred, and maintained clear communication even in chaotic situations. Her decisions were not impulsive. Each move was calculated and based on careful observation. This approach allowed her team to operate smoothly, avoiding common pitfalls that often slowed down less experienced officers. Midway through the simulation, the situation became more complicated. The scenario introduced unexpected obstacles, simulated emergencies, and sudden challenges designed to test problem-solving under pressure. Some members of other teams panicked or became disorganized, but Emily remained composed. She calmly assessed the changes, adjusted the plan, and reassigned tasks efficiently. Her ability to stay level-headed under stress inspired her team to do the same. They followed her lead, trusting her judgment completely. By the time this stage was complete, her team had not only survived the challenges, but had executed them with skill and coordination that impressed even the senior officers observing from the sidelines. The final stage of the mission simulation tested strategic thinking and teamwork at the highest level. Emily's team was tasked with coordinating multiple units, communicating across distances, and achieving objectives while managing limited resources. Many considered this stage nearly impossible for a new officer, but Emily approached it systematically. She delegated responsibilities based on each member's strengths, monitored progress, and maintained a clear line of communication. When unexpected issues arose, she quickly analyzed the situation and implemented solutions without hesitation. Her strategic thinking, combined with her calm demeanor, ensured that her team remained focused and effective. By the end of the simulation, Emily's team achieved results that exceeded expectations. Every objective was completed, every challenge handled efficiently, and the team performed with cohesion and confidence. The senior officers, including those who had doubted her at first, were clearly impressed. Emily had demonstrated not just her capability as an officer, but her ability to lead, plan, and inspire her team. Her success was not about showing off. It was about competence, intelligence, and composure under pressure. Chief Ramirez, who had once asked her rank as a joke, observed the simulation closely. He had seen Emily's performance improve steadily over the past weeks, but this final exercise left him genuinely impressed. After the simulation, he approached Emily and offered his acknowledgement. Not in a teasing tone, but with sincere respect. "You handled that exceptionally well," he said. Emily's team members smiled quietly, knowing they had been guided by someone truly competent. For Emily, this was a moment of quiet pride. She had proven her abilities not to anyone in particular, but to herself, demonstrating that dedication, preparation, and strategic thinking could overcome skepticism and doubt. The aftermath of the simulation left a lasting impression on the base. Conversations shifted from questioning Emily's skills to discussing her leadership and decision-making. Other teams, previously dismissive, now looked at her with respect, recognizing that her abilities went beyond just following orders. Emily had shown that even as a newcomer, she could rise to the occasion, lead effectively, and achieve results under pressure. Her quiet determination and consistent effort had transformed her reputation. Emily reflected on the experience as she walked back to her quarters. She understood that respect and credibility were not won through arrogance or loud displays of skill. They were earned through steady performance, careful planning, and the ability to remain calm in high-pressure situations. This simulation had been a milestone in her journey, proving to herself and others that she was capable of leadership, strategy, and teamwork at the highest levels. By the end of the day, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that challenges would continue, but she was ready. The mission simulation had reinforced her belief that intelligence, preparation, and perseverance could overcome any obstacle. Her colleagues now saw her as a competent leader, and Chief Ramirez, along with other senior officers, had begun to trust her judgment. Emily had not only proven herself in one critical exercise but had laid the foundation for the respect and recognition that would follow her throughout her time at the base. After Emily Carter's outstanding performance during the mission simulation, a noticeable shift occurred at the base. The officers who had once doubted her abilities now watched her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Even Chief Ramirez, the SEAL who had previously asked her rank as a joke, seemed to view her in a completely new light. Emily noticed it in small ways. The way he acknowledged her with a nod during morning drills, the careful attention he paid when she offered suggestions, and the absence of the teasing tone that had once marked his interactions with her. This change was subtle but meaningful, and Emily understood that it signified a turning point in how she was perceived. For Emily, the real change wasn't just in how others saw her. It was in how she saw herself. Over the past weeks, she had faced skepticism, teasing, and subtle tests from colleagues and senior officers alike. She had learned to remain calm under pressure, observe carefully, and act with precision and strategy. She realized that respect and trust were not given. They had to be earned through consistent effort, competence, and integrity. Each small success, each well-executed task, had built her confidence and slowly transformed her reputation at the base. One morning, as Emily was walking to the training grounds, she noticed Chief Ramirez waiting nearby. There was no smirk this time, no playful tone. He simply looked at her with a direct, almost serious expression. "Emily," he said, his voice calm, "I have to admit, I underestimated you." It was a simple statement, but for Emily it carried enormous weight. Chief Ramirez was known for his sharp eye and critical nature, and acknowledgement from him meant more than praise from anyone else. Emily nodded politely, a small smile on her face. "Thank you, sir," she replied, keeping her tone respectful and composed. She didn't boast or celebrate. She simply recognized the significance of the moment. This conversation marked a turning point in their relationship. From that day forward, Chief Ramirez began treating Emily as an equal rather than a newcomer to be tested or teased. He offered guidance and mentorship, sharing insights from his years of experience rather than merely pointing out flaws. Emily listened carefully, applying his advice thoughtfully and demonstrating her ability to integrate new knowledge quickly. This shift was important not only for her own growth but also for the way others at the base perceived her. When a senior officer like Chief Ramirez showed respect, it sent a powerful message to everyone else. Emily also noticed how her colleagues' attitudes were changing. Officers who had once whispered or glanced skeptically now approached her for advice and collaboration. Some sought her input during training exercises, asking her to help coordinate plans or analyze challenges. Emily welcomed these opportunities, understanding that collaboration and teamwork were just as important as individual skill. She continued to lead by example, showing patience, intelligence, and composure in every interaction. Gradually, she realized that she had become a figure others could rely on, a leader not because of her rank alone, but because of her consistent performance and character. Despite this newfound respect, Emily remained humble. She knew that one acknowledgement or one shift in perception did not mean her journey was complete. The base was full of high standards and demanding expectations, and she would face more tests and challenges in the future. Emily focused on her next steps, setting personal goals to continue improving her skills, understanding the base's operations, and supporting her team effectively. Her mindset was simple: keep learning, stay composed, and prove her abilities through actions, not words. One day, during a routine drill, Emily faced an unexpected challenge. A small miscommunication between teams created a potential problem in the exercise. Many officers would have reacted with frustration or blame, but Emily remained calm. She assessed the situation quickly, identified the source of the problem, and implemented a solution that allowed the exercise to continue smoothly. Chief Ramirez, observing her actions, nodded in approval. Other officers, who had witnessed her handling the situation with clarity and efficiency, began to respect her judgment even more. Moments like these reinforced the fact that Emily's leadership and composure were genuine, not situational. Over time, Emily's confidence continued to grow alongside her reputation. She learned to anticipate challenges before they arose, to communicate clearly and effectively, and to inspire trust among her peers. Her consistent behavior created a ripple effect. Officers began to cooperate more efficiently, teams functioned more smoothly, and the overall morale of those around her improved. Emily understood that leadership wasn't just about completing tasks. It was about influencing the environment positively and earning the loyalty and respect of those around her. By the end of this period, it was clear that Emily had achieved something significant. She had transformed initial skepticism into admiration. Chief Ramirez and other senior officers treated her as a competent professional. Her peers respected her judgment and reliability. Emily's journey of proving herself was far from over, but she had reached a major milestone. She had shown that true respect could not be faked or demanded. It had to be earned through dedication, skill, and consistent integrity. Emily reflected quietly one evening as she looked over the base from a high vantage point. She remembered the first day, when her rank had been asked as a joke, and how nervous yet determined she had felt. Now, she had gained not only respect but also confidence in her own abilities. She realized that challenges, doubt, and skepticism were opportunities to demonstrate strength, intelligence, and character. Emily had learned that persistence, preparation, and calm leadership could transform even the harshest critics into allies and mentors. With this realization, she felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she had proven herself in ways that would be remembered and respected throughout the base. The day of formal recognition finally arrived, and the atmosphere at the naval base was filled with a mixture of anticipation and pride. Officers and personnel moved about with purpose, preparing for the assembly where outstanding achievements would be honored. Emily Carter, now no longer the uncertain newcomer, felt a mixture of nerves and quiet excitement. She had worked hard for this moment, proving herself not only in daily routines but also in high-pressure exercises, earning respect through determination, intelligence, and calm leadership. Today, her efforts would be publicly acknowledged, and she understood the significance of the event, not for personal glory, but as recognition of her dedication and competence. As Emily arrived at the assembly area, she noticed the subtle change in the way people looked at her. Some smiled warmly, others nodded respectfully, and even those who had once doubted her abilities now watched with curiosity and interest. The base had seen her grow, and her journey from a newcomer to a respected officer was about to be celebrated in front of everyone. Emily felt a quiet pride, tempered by humility. She knew that recognition was meaningful, but it was her consistent actions over weeks of effort that had truly earned this moment. When the ceremony began, the commanding officer addressed the assembled personnel, praising the commitment, skill, and leadership demonstrated by individuals who had gone above and beyond in recent weeks. Emily's name was called, and she stepped forward. A hush fell over the crowd, followed by a growing murmur of respect. Every officer, sailor, and trainee turned to look at her. Chief Ramirez, who had once asked her rank as a joke, now led the salute. His expression was one of genuine admiration, and the respect he showed set the tone for the entire base. The sight was humbling and powerful. The same officer who had doubted her initially was now publicly acknowledging her accomplishments. As Emily walked to the front, she reflected on her journey. She thought about the first day, the moments of doubt, the teasing, and the skepticism she had faced. She remembered the challenges she had overcome, the meticulous observation of routines, the lessons learned from mistakes, and the countless hours of preparation that had built her confidence and competence. Each step she took toward the front of the assembly was a reminder of her perseverance and the steady effort she had put forth. The salute from the base was more than just a formal gesture. It was a symbol of trust, acknowledgement, and respect. Emily felt a surge of emotion, realizing that her actions had changed perceptions. Those who had whispered doubts were now silent, replaced by admiration for her skill, intelligence, and composure. Chief Ramirez's salute in particular carried weight. It was a recognition from someone who had challenged her, tested her, and ultimately respected her abilities. Emily's heart swelled with quiet pride, not because of personal glory, but because she had demonstrated through action that she belonged at the base and had earned the respect of her peers and superiors alike. After the ceremony, officers approached her to offer congratulations. Many spoke of how impressed they were with her leadership, strategic thinking, and ability to remain calm under pressure. Some younger trainees looked at her with wide eyes, clearly inspired by her journey and the way she had handled every challenge. Emily took their words with gratitude, knowing that recognition also carried responsibility. She understood that her actions now served as an example for others, demonstrating that dedication, focus, and perseverance could overcome skepticism and doubt. Even Chief Ramirez approached her afterward. This time, his tone was warm and respectful. "You've done well," he said simply, offering a nod of approval. There was no teasing, no hint of challenge, only acknowledgement and respect. Emily smiled politely, feeling a sense of closure in that moment. Their relationship had evolved from initial doubt and playful testing to mutual respect and professional trust. It was a testament to her growth and ability to prove herself in a demanding environment. The ceremony had another effect. It inspired others at the base. Emily's journey from a newcomer who faced doubt and mockery to a respected officer demonstrated that hard work, intelligence, and composure could earn genuine recognition. Conversations among personnel shifted from speculation about her abilities to admiration for her dedication and achievements. Emily had not only earned respect for herself, but had also set an example for others, showing that obstacles could be overcome with determination and careful strategy. As the day drew to a close, Emily reflected on the significance of the salute, the recognition, and the respect she had earned. She realized that the journey was ongoing. Earning respect was a continuous process, and her responsibilities had grown alongside her reputation. However, the ceremony marked a milestone, one that symbolized her acceptance and acknowledgement by those she had worked alongside. It was proof that perseverance, intelligence, and calm leadership could triumph over doubt and skepticism. Walking back to her quarters, Emily felt a sense of accomplishment that was quiet but profound. The base had recognized her not for luck, status, or charm, but for her consistent efforts, strategic thinking, and composure under pressure. She knew that her journey was far from over, but the salute and acknowledgement she had received would remain a motivating force, reminding her of what was possible when dedication met opportunity. In that moment, Emily Carter stood not only as a respected officer, but as an inspiring example for everyone at the base, demonstrating that perseverance and excellence could transform doubt into admiration. Emily Carter had come a long way since her first day at the naval base. The nervous newcomer who had stepped off the transport weeks ago was now a confident officer, respected by peers and superiors alike. Her journey had been filled with challenges, skepticism, and subtle tests, but she had faced each one with intelligence, patience, and perseverance. Part 8 of her story marked the final chapter of her early journey at the base, a chapter that celebrated not just her accomplishments, but the legacy she was beginning to leave behind. The days following the formal recognition ceremony were different for Emily. She noticed that the environment around her had changed, not dramatically, but in meaningful ways. Officers now approached her with a willingness to listen and collaborate. Junior personnel looked to her for guidance, recognizing that her advice was reliable and well-informed. Emily understood that respect at the base was not about rank alone, it was earned through consistent action, integrity, and competence. She had proven that even in a highly demanding and male-dominated environment, dedication and strategic thinking could command admiration and trust. One of the most significant aspects of Emily's legacy was the example she set for newcomers. The base was always welcoming new officers and trainees, many of whom arrived uncertain and anxious about their place in such a disciplined and competitive environment. Emily's story had already begun to inspire them. They observed how she had handled skepticism with composure, how she had turned challenges into opportunities, and how she had earned respect without arrogance. Her journey became a model for resilience and determination, a living example that excellence was achieved through persistence, preparation, and smart decision-making. Emily herself remained humble despite the growing recognition. She knew that respect and success were fragile. They could be lost through carelessness or complacency. She continued to approach each day with the same focus that had brought her this far. Whether in routine drills, planning exercises, or strategic simulations, she maintained meticulous attention to detail, clear communication, and a calm demeanor. Her consistency not only reinforced the trust others had in her, but also cemented her role as a dependable and influential officer at the base. Her relationship with Chief Ramirez had evolved into a partnership of mutual respect. The man who had once questioned her rank and tested her abilities now saw her as an equal, someone capable of leadership and critical thinking. He often consulted her on complex scenarios, valuing her perspective. Their professional relationship became an example to others at the base, showing that respect and collaboration could replace doubt and skepticism when competence and integrity were evident. Emily's influence extended beyond direct mentorship or leadership. Her ability to remain composed under pressure inspired a culture of professionalism among her peers. When others faced unexpected challenges or high-pressure exercises, they began to emulate her approach, analyzing situations carefully, thinking strategically, and staying calm even in difficult circumstances. Emily's presence quietly raised the standards of performance and attitude around her, demonstrating that excellence was contagious when paired with humility and focus. Despite the praise and acknowledgement, Emily remained focused on continuous improvement. She knew that the journey of an officer was never truly complete. There were always new challenges, higher expectations, and opportunities to grow. Her ambition was not fueled by recognition alone, but by a desire to serve effectively and lead responsibly. She sought every chance to learn, whether from senior officers, peers, or even mistakes she encountered along the way. This mindset ensured that her early successes were not fleeting but formed a foundation for long-term achievement and influence. As time passed, Emily reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the first day, when Chief Ramirez had asked her rank as a joke, and how she had felt nervous yet determined. She thought of the exercises, challenges, and subtle tests she had faced, and how each had contributed to her growth. She realized that her true accomplishment was not just the respect she had earned, but the transformation in how she approached challenges, leadership, and teamwork. She had learned that respect was a byproduct of consistent action and integrity, and that leadership was about inspiring confidence and trust in others through example. Emily's story became part of the base's informal history, often recounted to newcomers as a source of motivation. Her journey demonstrated that being underestimated was not a limitation but an opportunity to show skill, intelligence, and perseverance. She had turned doubt into admiration, teasing into recognition, and skepticism into respect. Her legacy was a reminder to everyone at the base that excellence could not be faked. It had to be earned through effort, composure, and intelligence. Looking toward the future, Emily felt a sense of quiet pride and purpose. She understood that her journey at the base was only beginning, but the foundation she had laid would guide her and others for years to come. She had proven that perseverance, preparation, and courage could overcome doubt and mockery, and that respect earned through consistent action was far more powerful than any casual acknowledgement or joke. Emily Carter had not only earned her place at the base, but had also become a lasting example of leadership, intelligence, and integrity, inspiring everyone who followed in her footsteps.